You're right, right, right.
Venezuela, we kind of grew up dancing very similar to how Cubans dance. We had a little more footwork here and there, but it was never some of this back and forth that you see in the United States. It was more close position, and you would travel around in close position, which is very close to how song is danced in Cuba.
So
So
we say in the U.S. You mean like it's like that linear style?
linear
That
style, yeah,
okay.
that didn't really exist in Latin American country, at least in Venezuela, didn't
I
really.
get you.
The linear style actually comes from
Mama za kungi betengo we kumoyi ingumada takana okyo sokinu kibanga se Manuele ngando mushisamye Manuele Manuele.
Hey. Hey, everyone. On today's episode of the 2FP podcast, we had on the wonderful and incredible DC Casineros, who are currently teaching uh, Cuban style salsa as well as Rueda in DC. Man, they've got so much love and passion for salsa. Today, I interviewed the founder, Miss Amanda Gills, and also the current artistic director, Miss Adrian Valdivia. Man, Adrian was born in Venezuela and Amanda was born in Virginia. This is an amazing episode with so much value. If you're interested in learning about Cuban salsa, Rueda, great episode. Let's jump right into it.
So I am now on the line with a Miss Amanda Gill and an Adrian Valdivia, who
Mhm.
are the co-directors of DC Casineros, which is a renowned dancing company that performs and teaches Cuban dance styles. I believe your mission is to build healthy communities through the art and culture of Cuban dance. Is that right?
Yes.
Hey, so I believe Miss Amanda, you were born in Annandale, Virginia,
Yes.
and Adrian, you were born in Venezuela. Is that right?
That's right. You did your
So
research.
I tried to do a little bit. So yeah. So I believe you, Amanda, you founded DC Casinos in 2005, right?
Yes, I did.
Mhm. And you've been choreographing, teaching, and performing casino infused with Afro Cuban for the past 17 years.
Yep, since 2005.
Okay, 2005. Sure. Okay, sure.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Adrian, you've been dancing solo casino and other popular dances for what, maybe the past 10 years or so?
Well, more now. I mean, I think that description was probably we did that description like 7 years ago. So it's
Okay, wow.
since 2005. Yeah.
Okay, sure enough, yeah. So, well,
Experience.
let me ask you this, how you are doing today?
I'm sorry.
I said, how you are doing today? Let me start
Oh,
with that.
good. Great.
Okay, great. So, I guess I really want to ask both you all. Let me ask you first, Age. I've never been to Venezuela, man, so I'm very curious. What was your childhood like growing up in Venezuela, man?
Childhood in Venezuela. Well, I grew up in a household where, I mean, there was always music and dance and actually, I must tell Amanda a lot of the times we had a lot of family parties every weekend. So every
Okay.
weekend I was very much exposed to and all kinds of music. At the time, it was more Fanny a stars. So the 70s and early 80s was what they call now salsa music. Um, those particular styles, but also I was very much exposed to also a lot of traditional Venezuelan music. And then, in Venezuela, there was a very strong curriculum around the arts. So therefore, you had to kind of learn and sing and play Venezuelan music and instrumentation. And also, one of my uncles is the director of a very renowned traditional Afro-Venezuelan dance and music company in Venezuela too.
Yeah.
So that really helped with all that. Hmm.
Did you grow up around musicians, correct? Or
Hmm.
did you grow up around like musicians as a child?
Well, I grew up around musicians, yeah, but mostly dancers. I mean, all my uncles were
Okay,
dancers.
okay.
My mom was a dancer, street dancers, not necessarily professional dancers. Hmm.
I'm curious. So growing up in music was such a big factor in your life. Was dancing more so like just a social thing, or was it strictly like parties, or what?
Was dancing? Yes, for me it was very much a social thing. But again, I I mean, I saw my uncles and my aunties dance all the time, and I really kind of learned from them, but I really learned from my cousins, my older cousins. And in Venezuela, you kind of have to learn how to dance because if you don't, your social life is kind of over. It's not like here. So you definitely have to. That's like kind of like it's needed for you to be able to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or
Okay.
do kind of anything else. You,
What was it? Was it the learning process like I guess pretty much imitating what you saw, right? Just learning and
yes,
watching.
very much so. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much.
Okay. So I understand that, man.
So it wasn't like in a studio or anything like that. No.
Right. I understand. And then, so you, I guess, were you strictly growing up listening to salsa music? Is that what the music was back then?
Uh,
Salsa was bachata, or just strictly salsa was the main
at
genre?
the time, I think maybe it's early '80s, late '70s, early '80s, and so I'm thinking mostly probably salsa and also Cuban music from the
Okay.
'60s and '70s in Cuba. So I'm thinking Iraquere, but also a lot of trova music from Cuba, like Pablo Milanés and Silvio Rodriguez. My mom used to love that music, so she constantly played at home all the time. So did my dad at the time, my biological dad too. So it was a mixture of trova with salsa from the '70s, plus Cuban music, plus also rock and roll. Like they were big fans of Queen and the Beatles. I spent a lot of my childhood listening to that music too as well.
So let me ask you real quick.
Hmm?
I guess let me ask you this: how big of an impact did, I guess, maybe the U.S. music have in Venezuela? Was it a big impact or not really?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, yeah, sure, of course,
Okay, sure enough.
definitely. Michael Jackson was huge at the
Okay.
time.
Whatever, I get you. And Amanda, so yeah, you born in is it Annandale, correct?
Yes, Northern Virginia.
Is that Northern Virginia? I'm actually from Virginia. So is that near Herndon at all?
Sorry, your voice is cracking up a little bit. I'm just gonna check the Wi-Fi and make sure. Okay. Can you say the question again?
Yeah, I said Annandale. I'm actually from Richmond, Virginia, and
Richmond.
so I'm curious. Yeah, is Annandale? Is that no like Herndon?
It's closer to the DC border, so it's
Okay,
next to Falls Church, Alexandria.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
no, yeah. And please tell me, what was your childhood like growing up in Annandale?
Well, starting from the age of 4, I was in ballet classes. It was my parents' dream that I became a dancer. So, along with going to public school, on the afternoons, I would go to the dance studio. I was a very, very, say, focused, disciplined ballerina. Spent a lot of time in the studios, even Saturdays. I was at the studio learning choreographies, getting ready for performances. Um, and I didn't have much of a social life growing up because I was really just going to school and then going to dance.
Mm.
It's my life. But I was very happy.
Eh,
And like Adrian, we were listening to the Beatles, to
Mhm.
Queen, also Michael Jackson at home. And
Mm.
when I would have friends over, we do a lot of choreographies. We just make up dances to,
Mhm.
especially Janet Jackson. I was one of
okay.
my artists. So I was practicing my choreography skills at a young age. But it was a suburban community I lived in, also very diverse because the high school I went to, Annandale High School, was recognized by the UN in 1998 as being one of the most diverse high schools in the country,
Wow.
around people from all over the world, which was a real blessing. And didn't discover Latin dance, wasn't really exposed to Latin dance till I went to Bolivia at the age of 16
Mm.
from my English class. And there started dancing salsa with all of his friends in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Came back and started taking a salsa class at the local college, Nova, with some Colombians, and just fell in love with salsa music.
Okay.
I was
Sure
around
enough.
16 when I started doing salsa.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this first. I guess growing up, were your only hobbies as a child strictly ballet? Is that our dancing? I guess really just strictly
And then
dancing.
I also played piano, classic
Okay. Sure
piano.
enough. Yeah, okay.
I grew up
T-
in a very classical
Wow.
household.
hey, let me ask you this. I'm I'm very curious to know, and you may not remember, but tell me about your beginner stage in ballet. Do you know what that was like?
Um, my beginner stage, it was hard in the sense that it was hard to stand with your feet turned out. It was hard to stand really erect and upright and hold positions for a long time. So I remember my body being really sore.
Okay.
Lots of soreness in the shoulders and the back, my hips. It was hard to adapt to classical technique.
Okay, yeah.
Eventually, I left ballet because after puberty, my body wasn't able to do ballet as well as
Oh,
back was flexible, and my hips weren't able to hold that 180-degree position the ballerinas have to do. It was really hard. Uh,
okay.
so,
Is that is that something that you want to do, or your parents got you into
well,
originally?
they encouraged it, but I ended up loving it. I love
Okay.
the discipline, the ritual, the positions, the expressivity, the
Mhm.
artistry. I loved ballet.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Music, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And you already touched on it, but I'm very curious. What brought you to Bolivia?
So I had a really good friend in my 11th grade English class, and he and his mom and my mom got together and said, we send our son every year to Bolivia. Would your daughter like to go and
Awesome.
experience South America?
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yay. So yeah, please tell me, tell me what Bolivia was like, and maybe tell me how was Bolivia different than the U.S.
Um, so when I was there, it was 1997.
I was 6 years old.
Yeah, I was 16. It was visually it was different. It was very mountainous, a lot of open space, and I was used to very crowded, more urban life. So it was nice. The air felt fresher, and it was different. It was calmer. But what I remember most is his family. How tight the family was. Every day for lunch. Lunch was the most important meal of the day. We'd have a three-course lunch. The food was out of this
Oh
world.
man.
Never ate that well in my house. Um, and I loved, yeah, how close family was, how important the food culture was, and how important music was. The main social activity for him and his friends was to get together at night, play trova music, play
Mhm.
Silvio Rodriguez, Pablo Milanese, and
Mm.
that's where I was first exposed to Cuban
That's
music as
interesting.
well, the trova music there.
Okay, okay,
And you saw Che Guevara spray painted everywhere
Mm.
around Bolivia.
okay.
So that was my first introduction as well to the revolution.
So was he was actually idolized in
Yes.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I've heard some mixed things about him, but okay, I understand they idolized him.
Yes. And he was assassinated. No, well, he was killed there, right?
Thank you, Bolivia. Mhm.
Yep, I
Thank you.
believe he
For
died
sure
there.
enough. Okay, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Okay.
It's all
Yeah,
over.
gotta check, but I think you was. I think it was
I
Bolivia.
believe it was Bolivia.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I definitely wanna hear about your beginner stage in salsa, but I'm very curious, Adrian. After so you're growing up and everything in Venezuela.
Hmm.
Um, I guess what happens. Oh, I guess let me ask you, what were some of your hobbies as a child growing up?
As a child growing up,
Sure.
I think I was. I mean, I was playing sports. I think. I mean, I grew up playing.
I guess soccer, right, or what?
Well, it's baseball actually. So,
Okay,
so,
okay.
yeah, that's the national sport really. So
Oh wow.
grow up, you either play baseball, you don't play baseball. I mean, everybody has to at some point play baseball at some point, but you play it in the streets. So a lot of times is you kind of using your hand, use a we call a pelotica de goma, a ball made out of this
Blue.
this very bouncy material. So you hit it with your hand, and then bounces everywhere. But people have to catch it and so on. So you actually learn how to a lot of skills, hand-eye
Yeah,
coordination
especially hand eye. Yeah.
to like everywhere, and you're playing in the street. So what happens is you have to wait for the cars to pass.
Cars.
You come back to the street, play some more, then the cars pass.
I remember that.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit dangerous too. But then my mom put me in, like into soccer, so I started playing soccer. I mean, in a club, and then started playing basketball because of the dream team in '92.
Okay.
I came to actually to Venezuela to play, or to there was a World Championships in Venezuela.
Right.
Because yes, was the dream team was playing this,
Oh man.
so I kind of like really got into it,
Of
and that's
course.
kind of like my sport.
Yeah.
At some point, but for the most part through that time, I was still also dancing too. Um, Again, my cousins and my uncles were very adamant to keep, to. I mean, again, it's something that you do every day or every other day at parties, at events. You know what I mean? So that's basically part of my hobbies in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say dancing, I guess do you more so mean you're not taking classes, right? You're just dancing as a fun activity, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Sure
basically.
enough. Yeah. Yeah. I just
The
yeah.
only time we did some kind of classes was to learn our traditional music.
Mm.
In middle school, you kind of learn in music and dance class. You basically it's mandatory for you to learn basically joropo, tambores, which is basically the music. So you have to sing, dance, and play some of the instruments.
Okay.
Um, and so I mean, this is what music class was. Music and dance class was. This was required course. So
Mm.
between middle school and high school, you probably have to do that. Uh,
Okay.
so just about every Venezuelan, you have to know all these particular types of songs and so on.
Right. 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 I understand. And so let me.
Hey kid, come here.
Hey, if you could like and subscribe for the channel, that'd be amazing. Let's get back to
All
the
right,
show.
I understand. And so let me ask you this, man. You growing up in Venezuela and everything. Um, what happens after you graduate high school? Like, do you decide to go to college, or are you trying to go professional?
Well, in my case, my mom actually, after my mom got divorced from my biological dad, my mom, like 3, 4 years later, she met, or not more like 5, 6 years, she met an American diplomat, African American diplomat, who was stationed in Venezuela, and they form a relationship. And by the time I was 16, 17, I think, I believe, they were about to get married, so we moved to Southern Africa.
Oh, Southern Africa. Wow.
Malawi. So I lived in Malawi for a couple of years, and that's why I kind
Oh,
of finished my high school.
okay. Well, I mean, I gotta ask you, man. What was that like, man?
I was amazing. It was a different experience, and it was great. It was amazing. I mean, in Venezuela, a lot of times there's something that happens because of the way, especially around race and being a black person in Venezuela, in the city of Caracas, during assimilation for dark skinned people, sometimes things are not might not we tend to be a little bit discriminated against in some way, not a little bit, a lot, but in a way in which we are made fun of. At times we might be discriminated against in different areas. But when I got to Malawi, it's kind of the first time where there was a sense of like, oh, okay, I was different. I was this black dude that spoke
Yeah,
Spanish.
you spoke Spanish though. Yeah.
I was a teenager, and I used it to my advantage, of course, because everybody's like, oh my goodness, this guy who's from Venezuela who speaks Spanish. We've never seen anything like that, or I've seen that, but not really. So
Uh-huh. Well, but hold on. So you're saying I think the correct term was I guess maybe colorism. So meaning back in Venezuela, I guess because you were of darker complexion, you
yeah,
got
it's a
bullied or
little bit
so.
of colorism, yeah, yeah, within the family, but also colorism. I think it was just straight up racism too, as well. I mean, you have white Venezuelans, just like you have black Venezuelans, and
Okay.
also the way the system works. A lot of times, what you see in the news or what you see in TV is not truly representative of the people in the country. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, you see the people that are on TV with have much more European features, have
Mm,
just really not really representative Venezuelans. We are such a mixed bag.
okay.
If you get in a plane, go to Venezuela and Caracas, you're like, oh my goodness. You see people of all colors, of all
Yeah.
complexions, and that's what sort of makes us beautiful people.
Yeah, I said, if I hadn't heard you talk, man, I would not know what your ethnicity is, man.
Mhm.
And it's so crazy, man, because my girl, she's from well, she's Dominican, but
Mhm.
she's from Puerto Rico, and looking at her and her brother, man, if you don't hear them talk, you wouldn't be able to tell what ethnicity they are as well.
Mhm.
So it's kind of crazy, but I definitely understand what you're saying. So yeah, you moved to South Africa, man, and tell me, how was South Africa different than Venezuela? And were you speaking English at that time?
Well, Southern Africa area, and specifically Malawi. So
Okay.
Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Well, no, yeah, in those countries I spoke English, but again, I was learning English, so I kind of learned English on the fly, and it's kind of sink and swim.
Okay.
So it was really, really hard, and learn faster than other times.
Especially because you were in school, right? So they
Yeah.
spoke English, right?
Right. So basically, I think they made a mistake in my transcripts. What they did, I mean, Venezuela at the time had one of the top educational systems in the world. I mean, and I think, not until now, but back then, I was in experimental school, high school. So what happens is that I used to have a lot of advanced placements courses. So what they did was they saw my career, they saw what I have done in Venezuela, and they basically translated to what I was going to do in this particular boarding school in Bishop Mackenzie School in Malawi, and just they gave me the same courses but in English. And,
Didn't work.
oh my God, yeah, it was terrible. I mean, for me, it was terrible because I mean I didn't know the language, so I mean, physics, chemistry, biology in English, and you know what I mean. This is the British system. I,
Right.
yeah, it was a mess.
Mm.
It was a mess. That first year there, it was really hard on me.
So
Um,
so meaning I guess were you failing grades or failing classes or
yeah,
like what
you know,
changed?
that year was like new. Just like yeah. I mean, I passed maybe the English classes, like
Gym class?
classes, but those other classes just yeah.
Yeah, I understand, man. And so real quick, tell me about how do you say the name of the country, of the city again?
Malawi.
Maui. Tell me about Maui, man. What was that city like, man?
Well, Malawi is a beautiful country, and half is a lake, half is a country. So
Oh,
it's pretty peaceful at the time, and it's actually the first time I sort of felt very, uh, very safe because of Venezuela, and then
hey.
it was actually pretty dangerous. So it was like the first time, and I just I said imagine being 17 or 18 and just growing up for in a different country, and learning different languages, different traditions, kind of opened my mind to so many
Of
different things.
course.
So
Yeah, man, that's really cool, man. That's very cool. And so let me ask you this, Miss Amanda. Going back to when you were in Bolivia, um, tell me about your beginner stage learning salsa. What was that like?
um, so I remember the first time I danced salsa was at a wedding, and it was just a big party, and random people were grabbing me, and I was just watching their feet, trying to mimic them. And the way Bolivians were dancing, at least these particular Bolivians were dancing to salsa music, it looked a
Was
little more like bachata. It was
is
step,
it that
it was
street salsa? I guess.
yeah, yeah. It was different than what I've, now been exposed to. But it was definitely in the partner stance, the closed position, but it was more of this bachata two step and then one step. Two step and then one step.
Okay, okay.
So it was interesting. And
Have you?
only on one or two more occasions did I get to dance it. So I wasn't dancing it every day. It was just like at
Oh,
different parties.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. And then when I came back to the States, I got a lot of salsa music. But this would have been music by Jerry Rivera. He was probably the first artist I
hmm
started dancing to.
Uh,
And I would just practice in my room because I was too young to go to the club. I was 16, 17. But as soon as I turned 18, I remember I started going out to nightclubs and doing salsa.
and so were you still in Annandale at that time, or had you moved?
So I was still in Annandale, and I moved. Well, when I was 17, I moved to Oberlin, Ohio. I went to Oberlin
Oh,
College for two
okay,
years.
okay, okay. And so you said you came back from Bolivia, and you were trying to take classes. Did Annandale, did they offer any salsa classes at all?
So the only place I found it was at the community college because I
Ah,
actually did my senior year of high school at the community college
Mm.
because I was practically done with high school and I was ready to get out of high school.
hey, I understand
My,
that.
the agreement was if I worked part time, I could then be at the community college and start earning
Okay,
college credits. And then
okay,
there were classes once a week.
nice.
I would go to those classes.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Amanda, are you bilingual? Are
Yes.
you fluent in Spanish? Okay.
And I started
Three languages.
speaking Spanish in Bolivia.
Okay, so enough. So started learning it, you mean, or started practicing? What you mean by speaking it? What do you mean?
Well, I was fluent in French at the time. I
Oh,
spent
wow.
middle and high school, and so Spanish came really easy. And then
Okay,
when I got back, I bought these workbooks and just sort of self-trained myself in
that's
Spanish.
awesome. How did you become fluent in French? Is that through school or your parents?
Mostly, no, through school. Yeah. And then I
Hmm,
spent a summer with one of my second cousins in Switzerland.
okay,
Oh, so I had 5 weeks to be immersed in it.
Mm.
that's awesome. They say that's the best way to learn, right? Is to immerse yourself in the
A
culture.
lot of information here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very jealous that you're multilingual. I would love that. So yeah, so you say you get back to Virginia, and you taking class and everything. Then you go off to Ohio. Where'd you go to again?
Oberlin.
Oberlin. Okay. And so, I guess tell me about Oberlin and what did you go to school for exactly?
So when I started, I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to study, but I ended up choosing comparative literature because I loved French, Spanish language.
Mhm.
Um, but I became more interested. So someone recommended I join a West African dance class. That was my second semester at Oberlin. Um, and that class changed my life. It was with a instructor named Adenike Sharpley, and she was a priestess that lived in Oberlin, originally from Cleveland. And she was giving us literature. It was a combination of experiential dance along with reading and writing, but she was teaching us the connection of Africa to the Americas. And she focused that class that semester on Haitian dance and Cuban dance,
Mhm.
Orisha dancing, and it blew my mind. It
Hey, yeah.
completely changed my world perspective and my understanding of the Americas, um, and how the Americas came about and how
Okay.
this melting pot of
Yeah, I
Africa
said it is a big melting pot.
and indigenous culture. So that
Mm,
was like transformative.
yeah.
Um, and I spent one more year at Oberlin working under her, doing dance and languages, but then came back to the DC area because my mom
Ah,
was diagnosed with cancer. So I transferred
okay.
to a university here in Northern Virginia.
Okay. Well, real quick, I want to definitely get into all that, but I'm very curious to hear, how was it, you know, going from Annandale to a new city, new state, and pretty much becoming an adult on your own. What was that like?
Um, so my grandparents on my mom's side are from the Midwest, from Iowa, and I spent a lot of summers with them on a farm. So going to Ohio, it looked almost identical to
Mhm.
Okay, okay. So Oberlin was kind of the middle of nowhere then, or what?
middle of nowhere.
Okay, shut
Very
up.
small town, just surrounded by cornfields.
Mm,
Um, but it was different. It was like a little bubble in the middle of the Midwest
Mhm.
of very intellectual, extremely liberal thinkers. It's a
okay,
super liberal art school. Um, and it was a culture shock.
okay, okay,
In a very intellectual household. My parents exposed me a lot to arts and the outdoors, but we didn't really talk about literature, about current events. Moving to this campus
Mm.
was a bit intimidating. So I was around a lot of kids that grew up with parents who were professors and attorneys, and I had to kind of catch up to their level of
okay,
thinking and analytical skills. So that was the biggest culture shock for me initially.
okay. I definitely understand that. And
And of
so
course, as an artist, I was drawn a lot to the music, the dance, the performing arts, and that's
of
where I had
course,
my home. Yeah,
okay, okay. So enough. And so you say you were forced, I guess, to come back to Virginia. Is that correct?
forced to what?
To come back to Virginia, you said.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I chose to because
Okay.
my mom had stage 4 ovarian cancer
Okay, that's very tough.
to live, so I moved back in
Okay.
that year.
Can if you don't want me asking, I guess I guess how did that affect your family?
Well, at the time, my parents had divorced when I was around 11, and my mom was with a new partner. So she had bought this really nice home and was very happy with her boyfriend. So it was really him, my mom, myself, and then my grandmother moved in, and we all just shared the responsibility and helped care
Okay,
for her. So it brought us together, but at the same time, it was, very
of
destabilizing.
course.
With the matriarch, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was challenging. Yeah,
Were you are you an only child?
I have a brother, an older
Okay.
brother, but he lived on
Okay.
the other side of the country.
Okay, sure enough, I understand. I definitely understand that. So yeah, yeah, you're going through these troubling times, and you know, are you dancing at that time? Like, I guess what's keeping you going.
Yeah, so I took a semester off and then applied at George Mason University, and that's where I met one of the biggest influences I've had in my dance career, Jim Lepore. He's a
Okay.
professor there,
Mhm.
and he's a modern dancer by training, but he travels to Cuba and he established, I think, one of the only non-Western Cuban courses where you get actual college credit for.
Mhm.
Back
Oh,
in like the early 2000s. He had to fight really hard to get his courses accredited by the university.
okay, okay.
He was the big attraction to transferring to GMU, George Mason. So yes, I actually decided to change my career, become a dance major.
Mm.
Dance became my saving grace.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
The
Um, I,
Cuba.
I'm very curious. I guess how did your parents feel about you becoming a dance major? Were they supportive of you, or were they kind of discouraged of it?
No, they were completely supportive,
That's great to hear.
which I know is doesn't always happen, but they were very supportive. Um, they had, I think, some mixed feelings about me doing salsa because it was a
Okay,
culture. They weren't didn't really understand
Mhm.
it. They liked more me being in classical ballet and modern,
okay, okay,
familiar with. And because my mom was so sick, it was hard to get her out of the house to sort of see me doing it and to expose her to the
hmm,
cultural context of it. So she never really got a chance to.
okay,
My dad now, he's been, with me the whole time, supporting the concert, supporting the company, collecting money at the door
Mhm.
for events.
okay. So
He's,
Mhm.
helping out.
Mhm.
yeah, he's
That's awesome.
for it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Um, so yeah, let me ask you this, Adrian. So say you move to South America, and I'm very curious. What happens after you graduate, man? Graduate high school.
So basically, I ended up graduating after the year that I did in Malawi. I ended up going to military school, and I graduated in Boone, Missouri, from a military school.
Oh wait, real quick, was that a punishment or was that your choice?
People ask that all the time. No, it's my choice actually.
Okay, okay,
Well,
sure
my
enough.
parents felt like, um, so basically, what happened in Malawi is that I started living a very privileged, as a privileged
As
life.
co- as compared to Venezuela, I imagine, right?
Like so my dad had the suggestion because he graduated, my stepdad had a suggestion since he graduated from military school, and he was in and he was in the army for a long time. He's a Vietnam veteran, and he suggested, hey, why don't you go to military school? And I said, well, why not? So I did. I didn't say it would look good in my resume, you know what I mean, after, and I did. It was great. It was great. It really implemented a lot of um, different ideas of discipline that I carry even to now.
Okay.
And it also got me closer to really understand, because this is the Midwest, and uh, is being able to be with people of different ethnicities and in a closed space where you constantly are working together doing different things. I mean, I got to basically be able to work with people, of all kinds and so on, despite of the stereotypes and the racism and the things that would come. I mean, some of my best friends who happen to be white, still are from that
Okay.
particular military school. But they basically had to learn from me about the experience of being an African heritage person from Latin America, just like I
Yeah.
learned from them what it was a white person from the Midwest, and and it was very interesting. But those bonds, still even to this day remain. I mean, my dude is Steve Eckhoff still this is one of my closest peeps
Sure
there.
enough.
We went
Yeah.
quite an experience at military school.
I believe
So
it.
yeah. I mean, after that, after I graduated, I went to college in North Carolina, University of North Carolina, and so on.
Okay.
hmm
Okay, man. And so what were you what did you decide to major in?
I majored in psychology and international studies
Okay.
and in Spanish literature.
Okay. Oh, and real quick.
Major in psychology, minor in Spanish literature and international studies.
Okay. I'm curious. Because your mother married, an American diplomat, is that how you were able to gain your citizenship?
I don't have my citizenship. Actually, that's coming. But yes,
Okay.
green
Okay.
card and all that stuff I do have. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sure enough. And I guess because you had the green card, you were able to that's in school and everything.
Yep.
Okay. Sure enough. Sure enough, man. So yeah. Tell me. I guess tell me about. I guess tell me about your time at North Carolina, man. What was that like? I imagine you were on your own, correct?
Yeah. My parents were in DC, but then they had to travel back to Africa. So
Okay.
for another mission. It was great. It was great in a lot of ways. I did learn a lot. I mean, it was kind of the first time that I was exposed to as an African heritage person from Latin America, a lot of times we saw the African American experience in this country as something to really strive to, and specifically through the way African Americans in this country were so visible, and through the magazines, through like Jet. Black Enterprise, and so in some kind of ways, I always wanted to figure out a way to be part of the culture or be part of the tradition, or at least have the exchange. And within the second or third day when I was there, I mean, a couple people who are African Americans from the South, from North Carolina, were like, "Hey, come to our table," and kind of that sort of started the transition for me to really learn hip hop, learn
Okay.
about so many different traditions and so on, and sort of have the exchange with them because I never really seen that many people from Latin America who were black.
Right. Right. Uh huh.
So it's kind of like
Uh huh.
it was an exchange back and forth. You know what I mean? So
Mm, I guess you, man. I'm curious. What were I guess you were a full time student at that time. Were you full time student and working, and were you dancing at all?
yeah, that continued. That continued. There's a lot of parties all the time, and actually, that's where I got introduced for the first time. I think my last 2 years to Cuban dance,
Mm,
specifically because the Buena Vista Social Club and Afro Cuban All Stars came to play at the university, and I happened to be in the diversity. I forgot what it was. It was the diversity task force.
committees. Oh,
Yeah, committee. So I got to drive them all around. So I met
okay.
ship with with Juan de Marcos.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome, man.
Met a lot of for that week. I met a lot of the band members. Some of them already deceased and they passed away. But like at that moment in time, it was just like a rich experience.
Yeah.
Didn't know much about casino dance by itself then, but there's a friend that was trying to teach me, but I was like, I wasn't sure much about it, much about it. So
Yeah. I'm very curious, man. Since you grew up in a Latin,
mhm.
Latin American culture, I want to first hear about your beginner stage learning casino, and I'm very curious to know, um, since you somewhat grew up with the music,
Mhm.
do you think that made it easier for you to pick up the dance?
That's a good question. So the way I actually learned casino was, I mean, Amanda was my first teacher.
Okay, sure enough. Okay.
So, like, I this is back 2005. So what happened was that I was I mean, I've been going, since I think 98, 99, even through college. There was a call, this a club called Havana Village, and I will always end up there, go there from like 99, from those years up to even now. But there's this club, and then there was like different salsa clubs that would play music, and you could see different performances. So I think by the time I graduated back 2001, 2002, I was seeing different people perform this particular type of music. Now, I didn't have the knowledge and the understanding what Cuban music was and what salsa
Okay.
in a sense was, because again, we've been talking a lot about salsa, but salsa is just a word that was used in the 70s to name
Right.
the music.
Exactly.
That's
In the states, right?
right, exactly.
Yeah. Was it even called sauce in Venezuela? What did y'all call it there?
At the time, it was called song. In the
Okay.
70s, it was called
Okay.
song.
Okay. Right. 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 And that's
77, 78, 79, but it was called Song Guaracha. It was Huanco,
so,
those things.
that was from Cuba, right? Or no? Am I mistaken?
Oh, Cuba. So what you hear, what we call salsa right now, is actually some music from Cuba
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
such a
Sure enough.
style in a big band, but it's really not. Salsa is just a misnomer that was given to sort
Right.
of promote the music outside of Cuba when the is the particularly the blockage or the blockade, how do you say that,
Blockade.
the blockade happened, and no longer Cuban musicians were able to travel. So Jerry Masucci and the and his peeps, within Final Stars were like, well, we need to figure out a way to promote this music outside the country, and that's what ends up happening at the time. But going back to the question, um, before, where were we at?
You said you were learning salsa or Cuban from Amanda. Are you talking about Havana Village? You were seeing
Yeah, yeah.
performances.
So what ends up happening is, so I'm seeing these performances, and I'm seeing it, and I'm like, well, people interpret this particular type of music that I was listening since I was little in a very different way. But there was not the familiarity of the way men dance, the particular dance, and like, I was kind of put off a little bit because I was
Uh,
like, no, this is not quite it. Especially when this dresses and this particular costumes, and I'm sitting here like, this is not how I experience this particular type of music. Now at the time, song
exactly.
and all these things. So uh, you know, I was very like, well, there has to be a niche or there has to be something. And it wasn't until I met Amanda. Actually, I saw this particular Cuban man in the club. His name is Maino and Paquito at the time. This is early 2000s. And they were dancing and they were switching back and forth between this particular girl, Mino, which is from Haiti, and there's these two Cubans, and they were dancing casino. And when I
Okay.
saw them, I was like, hold up, this is it.
Uh,
This is it. When you see casino at that level, um, don't
a talented level. It was a good like a.
well, they're street dancers, but Cubans when they dance casino is, and they're very good. uh, there's nothing like it. It's another experience. And that's when your gets really inspired. There's nothing like it. That's why So when I saw them, that was the truly inspiration. It was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I want to do that. I don't know what else
Yeah.
is going on, but I want to do that. So the moment Amanda was like, hey, look, I'm joining this Rueda Casino group. I ain't much about Rueda Casino, but I was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of like the thing that I have to do because I want to dance like those guys
Mm.
at some point or another. So
Yeah.
that's when
I was. I was like, yeah. I started. I actually started taking casino back in college myself,
happening.
and it is it's a very beautiful dance. I guess Rueda maybe to be more specific, but Rueda, when you see it done and it's like well executed, man, it is absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
And so I guess let me I don't think we really discussed this, but I guess how did you all meet? So man, you moved back to Virginia at that time, and you were going to school and everything. Did you move to North Carolina, or like I guess how did you all meet?
No, no, you're
No,
the
no, no.
hero.
I was here in Falls Church, Virginia, at George Mason University, and then, but I was dancing a lot, and I probably met Adrian in 2002 at the club, at this particular club, Havana Village.
Hmm.
Okay.
So we would occasionally dance. I'd be out with my girlfriends. He'd be out with his guy friends. We might,
Borichi.
yes, we would dance a little bit. And then in 2003, my professor said, Amanda, I'd like to send a student to Cuba to study modern dance. Would you be interested? And at the time, I was doing Afro Cuban folkloric dance with a woman named Marieta Ulacia here in Maryland. And I was like, yes. And Marieta's sister was the director of the modern dance department in Havana. And she came to visit Marieta. She auditioned me. And a couple months later, the university approved this study abroad. So I had the opportunity to
Nice.
go to Havana for five
Oh man,
months.
that's so cool.
and I studied modern dance, folkloric dance. But the real impact was when one of the women in my dance class approached me and she said, "Would you like to join a Rueda group? It's half Cubans, half foreigners. We practice Monday through Friday on this."
This is in Havana, right?
It was in Havana. So I joined a group. We're about 12 of us, and it was led by Roberto Aguilar, a street dancer from Cuba. And his dream was to get us to learn a 6-minute routine, Rueda routine, to
Good
perform
gracious.
Cuban television.
That's a long
We
routine.
got
Six
video,
minutes.
by the
And
way.
there's a
Okay.
documentary on YouTube of
Okay.
all of us the day we went to perform on Cuban TV. So I got immersed in this culture I had no idea existed because YouTube wasn't around at the time, and we
Mm.
US had such limited access to see what was happening dance wise in Cuba. So I got to Cuba, I was in the dance institution, but then I got invited to be a part of a Rueda group. 5 nights a week from 8 to 10, we'd
Just
get
practicing.
together, learn
That's
Rueda.
so awesome.
Classes, it was just like, okay, this is what you're going to do it. This is what we're going to do next. It was just, yeah,
That's so
choreography.
cool though. That's so awesome.
And by the time we performed, I got back to the States and I
Well,
looked.
a professional at that point, right away.
Well,
Yeah.
I was looking for somewhere to keep doing it, but I couldn't find teachers who were teaching it the way I had done it in Cuba. So I
Mm.
went to my professor Jim and I said, Jim, you got to teach me how to lead this dance because I have
Well,
to start teaching this dance.
hold on. I want to get into all that. I do definitely do. But tell me, what was Savannah like? Tell me about that.
So Havana in 2003, it was towards the end of the special period. So a lot of people in Cuba, a lot of my colleagues and the fellow students would tell me stories about how difficult the last 10 years had been. And they would talk about how the food at the university used to be like really awful, awful things.
Okay.
I don't even want to talk about it, but
Okay.
they were somewhat traumatized by
Wow.
how the lack of food and resources. So I would
Mm.
hear bits and pieces about how things were beginning to change. Food, there was more access to food and medicine. But Havana was, it was very lively. It was, the people were very warm and loving and seductive. I mean, it's a very different culture, very
Mm.
open, very sexualized.
That's what I've heard about Q. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was at the university a lot, so I was really like immersed in the campus. I went with a specific amount of money, and I knew no one could wire me money, and I couldn't get any
Mm.
more money. So I was
Right.
living on a
Right.
tight budget to sustain 5 months in Cuba.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't have a lot of contact with people back
Of
home
course.
because it was expensive to make calls and
I see. Yeah, no cell phones back then, huh?
no cell phone.
Sounds like the dark ages or something.
But it was rough at times. The conditions at the school were a little rough. I mean, no air conditioning, and we got into the dead heat of summer, and sometimes there's no
Oh.
electricity, so no fans. Toilets were no running water, so the toilets were always kind of a nightmare.
So it sounds like you got like a true experience though, huh?
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. We showered out of a bucket.
For 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 better or worse.
Cut the water off during the day. So, but it was okay because the spirit of everyone and just getting to be in congas in the middle of the day. I mean, things would just happen on campus. The students would want to organize a parade and
Mm.
drum and dance, and it was always something to celebrate. Any excuse to have a party was.
Okay. And I feel that's definitely something you never forget, right? The time you spent 5 months in Havana, right?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, that's an amazing experience. I'm very curious to hear. Tell me about your beginner stage in Rueda and Cuba. What was that like picking up the dance?
Um, that's a great question. It was, I guess, I don't remember it being super hard or super challenging. Maybe it was the fact that I'd been doing a lot of salsa. A couple years prior to that, I was used to leading, following, and that couple relationship. I think that can be the hardest thing for someone is learning how to find that tension and how
Right,
to
right. Of
actually
course.
listen to the signals of your partner. But I was already familiar with that. So it was more, and I'd already also been exposed to Afro-Cuban dance. So I was comfortable isolating body parts and moving hips and um so I just remember being pure joy. It was just like because the music, I was already a huge fan of bamban and timba music. The song he chose was a bamban hit at the time. Um, so it was just fun and laughter and
Hmm.
yeah.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I definitely understand that.
And we had a lot of Cuban male
Okay.
leads. They were
So more than women or what?
yes, there were more
Oh,
females from Sweden, the U.S., Switzerland, and but there were also Cuban women, but a lot of male leads from Cuba, and they used a lot of force, so they put you where they wanted you.
okay.
You just had to follow their lead. It wasn't, say a class where you're teaching the man how to lead, so the women tend to back lead. The men really knew what they were doing, so all I had
Okay.
to do was follow
Mm.
and keep.
I, yeah, I'm curious. That's always kind of been my experience with dance classes. For better or worse, kind of follows somewhat backly and everything. I guess how was that for you? I guess kind of being forced to follow. Can you just describe that? What is that like?
Um, I enjoyed it. I
Okay.
enjoyed just getting to turn off my mind and not have to memorize something.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
ballet and modern. Yeah, it was a release and just the whole social aspect of it, getting to hold
Hmm.
somebody and listen to them and be in rhythm with them. Yeah,
That's cool. That's awesome. That's really cool. And so you were saying, you experienced time in Havana, and then you get back to the States, and you said you were looking for somewhere to dance it as well.
right, right. And I couldn't find a teacher that taught it the way I had learned it. So I decided to start a class at
Okay.
the nightclub, Havana Village.
And I missed it. That's in Falls Church, Virginia. Where's that at?
That's in DC.
Washington D.C.
Oh, okay,
Adams.
okay,
Hmm.
Mhm.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
And
I
you
moved to
started
the
class.
city, started teaching every Saturday night.
Nice.
Adrian was my first student.
Okay, so enough, so enough.
Friends, so the class grew really quick. And after probably 2, 3 months, there were like six of us, three guys, three ladies, and
Nice.
wanted to rehearse a little bit more so we could start doing like street festivals and
Hmm.
get better at it. So
Mm,
initial six dancers were the beginnings of the company.
okay, okay, so enough, so enough. And I don't know if I asked you, Adrian. Did I ask you what your beginner stage was like in Cuban?
In Cuban dance,
Oh, I guess more so learning from Amanda. I guess what was that like? Learning from her.
and well, so one of the things about being a street dancer, I mean, I knew how to dance this particular, specifically what we call now, salsa within, but there's different interpretations of what we call this particular dance, which is not really. I mean, everybody's sort of dancing song, but in a different interpretation of it.
Right, exactly. Right.
Venezuela, we kind of grew up dancing very similar to how Cubans dance. We had a little more footwork here and there, but it was never some of this back and forth that you see in the United States. It was more close position, and you would travel around in close position, which is very close to how song is danced in Cuba.
So
So
we say in the U.S. You mean I guess like that linear style?
linear
That
style, yeah,
okay.
that didn't really exist in Latin American country, at least in Venezuela, didn't
I
really.
get you.
The linear style actually comes from Lindy Hop and from other dances, and that has kind of translated to what we call salsa in this country. But it's
Is
not a Latin American thing. It's much more an American thing.
is linear? Is that maybe an L.A. influence? Do you know? Or
Some of it is in LA influence, but it's also all the linear dances from the US influence.
okay,
So basically,
okay,
it's like picking up a linear dance and putting salsa on top on it. You know what I mean?
okay.
Kind of match with it. You know what I mean? So of course you use some of the shimmies and some of the other things that are you could tell are an American in their sense Cuban dance. But so when I got here, that's kind of like what I was dancing at some point. this particular kind of closed position, sometimes open position stuff, but not really quite what the linear dancers were doing. So a lot of times in the club, it was sometimes hard to.
I said I'm curious. Yeah,
Because people were asking you to dance on one, you dance on two, this particular linear, and I'm like, not really.
you just do
So
your own thing.
the crew of my friends who were mostly Afro Colombians, Afro Garifunas from how do you call it? Not from
Honduras.
Honduras, Black Hondurans, and all these other people. We kind of dance the particular same way how we listen to that particular music, not
Right,
this.
right, right.
Also, we kind of we had our own thing going on at some point, even if we go to different clubs, even though each says. But we also learned the particular linear style too, because we you have to survive at the club. I think the first time when I started learning with Amanda in and we actually learned in the Rueda Casino form. So at that time we didn't really have the understanding of casinos, the dance versus Rueda Casino. So it was hard for me. The transitions was pretty hard. Actually, she used to call me out all the time, Adrian, because I would miss. I mean, actually, I would miss the first call that I would miss is a Festival de Chufla. I couldn't get through Festival de Chufla without
Mm,
a mistake.
okay.
For the first years, I mean, she was always saying, Adrian, and it was basically doing the same move three times with a clap. That was
Hey.
all. But that to me was, what are you talking about? Like what? And at the same time, it's not that I'm ADD, but I have a lot of. I think I might be ADD. I mean, I just my attention is everywhere. So I think dance, in a sense, helped me sort of calm down a little bit and sort of be a little more focused. And I think I'm very forever thankful to her for that because, in a sense, through my years, I've always been a person that has been like everywhere,
Okay.
and it works really well in many aspects. But to be able to just be focused on one thing, memorizing something, work in a group, trying to get it together is a quite a process that is
Of course.
life skills that you kind of use for many other parts of your life. So that, in a sense, helped me. And I think I read about it, and actually does. It just helps with your mental health. It helps with many aspects of your life that has been great up to now.
Yeah. I
So
definitely understand that.
some days I can actually focus and just be totally, concentrated in one thing.
Okay, okay.
Sometimes I could do that well too, but sometimes.
I get you. I definitely understand that. I'm very curious to know, Amanda. It's kind of like a two-part question for you. Tell me, what was it like, starting your own dance classes? And then second part being, for someone who wants to start a dance class themselves, what are maybe some things you wish you knew, when you started doing it? Maybe just some hints and tips for someone else to start up their own dance class.
Um, well, when I started this dance class, it was free. I wasn't charging, so that took the pressure off, I think.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It was just a way to build community, to get people, introduce people to this sort of foreign Cuban dance style. So initially, I was very driven. I was on this mission to spread the knowledge of what I'd learned, try to get as many people exposed to it as possible. I didn't really have an outcome. I just knew I wanted to build
Okay.
a community of dancers. The vision wasn't to start a dance company or find a dance studio and start charging. It was just very organic. I knew that I wanted people to hear this music, learn how to move to this music, and eventually have people to do rueda with
Right.
in the
So you
club.
you trying to build your own community, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just trying to build a community. And I had a particular girlfriend at the time, Tiana Pichel, and she and I would go out dancing a lot. And she actually, I think, was the one that also said, Amanda, you need to start teaching this. You need to start doing this. So she was a big motivator. And thinking back to what I wish I had known, um, yeah, that's a great question. I think now, I mean, so I don't feel like I had a really strong, I had a somewhat of a method, but I didn't really learn a clear method till I became certified in the Casino para Todos methodology. Um, and So looking back now, that was in 2012, 13, when
Mm-hmm.
Adrian and I studied this formal methodology for teaching casino dance.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's been 7 years ago. So looking back to that moment in time, I think it's very helpful. If you're teaching a social dance, even though it is a social dance, which means it's evolving, it's not a static form of dance like ballet. It's very important to well, first of all, to understand how to teach leading and following. So how to get people in touch with listening to other people's energy and tension, and teaching them how to connect with the back. And even
Yeah.
though you get pressure in your hand, how to let the whole body respond.
Right.
So teaching them like fundamental drills about leading and
Okay.
following um, is key. But then also, ideally, I think even for social dance, you
Mm-hmm.
need building blocks. You need to be able to teach students how to be able to create, and how to, if you're learning a language, how to write sentences, how to begin and end phrases, how to land
Right.
certain positions,
Mm-hmm.
which initially I didn't have, but it was okay because we made it happen, and we still were able to really perform this dance in a pretty authentic way. But now that we do have this methodology, it just changes the whole game.
Right.
Okay. Right. Right. Right.
And I think, ideally look for people that have codified the dance, people that have
Mm-hmm.
created a method behind the dance, so that I mean, for me, Cuba is not my culture. So I've had to being immersed in it for 5 months, and then being immersed even in DC with friends, families, gatherings, parties,
Mm-hmm.
community events. That's key if you're going to teach a social dance from another culture.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking the language, understanding the idiosyncrasies, the way
Mm-hmm.
they joke, the way they express themselves.
Right.
Because
Right.
this
Right.
dance, I mean, even when you're hearing things in the music, being able to reflect that in your body, and understand even the musical breakdown of when breaks are happening, what different sections of the songs are, how Cubans move to those sections of the songs. All of that is very important. So
Yeah.
spending time soaking yourself, absorbing the cultural aspects, because I was, very immersed in it from
Of
2002
course.
when I started this dance company with Marietta to 2005. So I was in it for about 3 years before I started teaching it in 2000.
Okay. Nah,
So,
I think that's some. I think that's a very big, um, I guess factor in or thing of teaching. A teacher who has actually immersed themselves in the culture or even just experienced it versus a teacher who is just teaching the steps. It's very two different teaching styles. Correct.
Right.
So
Context.
yeah, I think that definitely makes you yeah, an excellent teacher. I already know that a better teacher than some others who are just teaching stuff. So I know your students really appreciate that. I'm very curious to know. So you're starting. Six of you, or you have your team, I guess, essentially, and you're trying to create a routine. I'm curious. I guess what happens, after that. That you have that six people, six team. What happens after that?
well, I remember, we'd meet once or twice a week in people's living rooms, sometimes at Adrian's house. There was a woman at the time named Meg and David at their house. Then we would practice in the school where I was working. We just find free space.
Mm-hmm.
And we got invited to the Mount Pleasant Day, a neighborhood festival. And then we got invited to a bigger festival. And at that particular festival, Adams Morgan Day, a woman approached me and
Mm-hmm.
said, "Do you want to teach at our studio?" And we've been teaching there ever since
Nice.
2006.
Okay.
Very prestigious studio in DC called Dance Place. They specialized in modern and West African dance, but they've seen how technical we are and just how community building this dance form is, and they invited us to be a resident dance company.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped us professionally grow because we
Nice.
have home-based theater. They help us produce hour-long concerts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a
yeah,
big
it was
difference,
huge.
and it
Okay.
pushes us, as Amanda said, it pushes us because every other year we have a production that we have to do for the theater,
Hmm.
and so
Okay.
have that. So you definitely has to have to, and it has to be, as you said, has to be authentic and somehow, some way, something reflective of Cuban dance. So a lot of times we spend a lot of the time training on different, not only on casino dance and Rueda casino, but on Cuban popular dances. And so that was our foundation and our training. And this is the reason why a lot of times, we work with the All Stars in Santiago de Cuba for many years. Where we have worked with so many different uh, Cuban dance instructors from Cuba and outside of Cuba, and Kathy Hernandez, and Kathy Hernandez and Ren are sort of our one of our core instructors and people that have really put
Okay.
a lot of the work that we've done, and at the same time, Joel Marrero through Casino para Todos too, even though he's a very controversial person within in the casino dance community. I mean, I don't think, I mean, without the foundation of MSSA and understanding the technique within the dance and how to recreate moves and foundations, I don't think the dance company will be where it is now in a lot of ways. And understanding also the context and your understanding of the dance, the culture behind it, and the history behind it. So a lot of times when we teach and when we are constantly, it's not only for us understanding, as you're talking about, the steps, but it's all about understanding the context, the culture,
Right,
and
right,
the music and the dance, and defining between Cuban popular and social dances versus much more folkloric traditions versus this, so that students have an understanding that one day when they go to Cuba or here when they meet a Cuban person, they have a language that they can speak, and that language is casino dance, that language is cha cha cha, that language is song, but they understand at least. They might not speak the Spanish, they might not know much about, but they might have a context and understanding of the dance looks like. And a Cuban person might say, "Wow, he gets me in that
okay. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
connection, right?"
Mm-hmm.
That creates a connection between those people that never was there before.
Exactly. That's so true, man. That's very true.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. Well, I guess let me ask you this thing. You all been teaching for quite a while now. I would like to maybe give some value to some dancers as well as myself, man. Who maybe people who want to improve their Rueda or their casino dancing. Could you maybe give me? We'll start with this. Maybe tell me some common flaws or mistakes that you might see in your classes that that you might want to rectify.
Yeah. Well, one thing when you're walking in casino, because this is a pedestrian dance, we have to teach our students to actually articulate heel toe through the feet.
Okay.
A lot of times we practice just walking across the room, heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. Even women in
Hmm.
heels do that articulation through the feet.
Hmm.
It's not ballet. You're not modifying your walk. But breaking that down, and also the forward motion, you're
Hmm.
never freezing on 4 or 8,
Right, right, right,
shifting your weight, and there's still a fluid
right.
motion, momentum through the body. So we focus a lot on that. Um, what else would you say?
I think so. A lot of times, a lot of our students come with new students come to the studio with understanding, thinking that what we do is salsa.
Hmm.
So right from the back, a lot of times we have a beginner class, we kind of get them to and we have had the students say, "Oh, I have training. I've done already salsa," and I say, "This is not salsa. this is this is not what you think it is." So a lot of times, some of the common flaws is getting students to understand that you're gonna actually move circularly
Hmm.
in circles and in edges and shapes,
Right.
actually going this linear particular thing,
Yes.
and that's hard to do. And getting people to really understand that the way they walk is actually the way that you're gonna dance,
Right, right, right. Uh-huh.
and get them to instead of imitate what we're doing, in a sense, trying to get them comfortable with the body enough to be able to do those particular walks and those particular types, because that's what the sense of dance is. Remember, this dance was a dance that was born in the 1950s through song. It's basically it's an evolution of song dance, but because it was done through the rueda at that moment in time, it, it came out to be a particularly circular dance that later on became a couple dance. But in big spaces in Cuba. At that time, it was the Casino Deportivos, but later on in the streets, in different parties. So the way people dance, but nobody had any kind of like classes where they learned this.
Right, right, right.
That their generations. My grandparents, I saw my grandparents dance, my aunties dance. Therefore, I'm gonna imitate. So the way it happened very pedestrianly. So it's almost like, and so in a sense, it is a hard but an easy dance to learn. In a sense, if you're, of course, you're Cuban, you're born in the culture. Of course, you notice, you imitate, and you continue that. However, to try to interpret that, to let somebody here from the United States or someone in another country to interpret and say, look, this is how you have to do, get them to understand that you got to think about from the perspective of, this is more natural than you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is the way you're supposed to walk, the way you're supposed to do things. It's not something that you're going to learn. It's not a particular dance like ballet or like a salsa too. It's a very different dynamic. So that's, we take a long time trying to get the students there. And then after that, oh, okay, makes sense. If it makes sense in your body, then you're probably doing it the right way.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let me ask you both this really. And I guess you can either answer either one, but I guess maybe for you, Amanda, could you maybe give me some hints or tips to help follows, maybe improve their dancing or become better follows?
Hmm. Um, well, we do this exercise that I think is important for leaders and followers to do, but it's sort of like a wash on, wash off. And ladies, we need to think about keeping our fingers closed so that we can make this full finger contact with the partner's hands, and be able to respond. But I think keeping your arms loose, keeping them light so he can move them as fast, as quick, as wherever in space he wants to move them is really important. So lightness in the arms, but keeping more awareness in your back. So when the arm is moved in a certain direction, how can you let the whole body respond? And that really
Mhm.
comes from the shoulder blades, from the back. And I think ladies also, well, followers,
Follows.
yeah, followers need to remember that it's not, well, they need to develop their own styling too, and they need to develop
Hey,
personality in the dance.
right,
So
right, right.
train, if it's particularly Cuban dance, they need to train in other styles like rumba, maybe folkloric dancing, the religious dancing, reggaeton. But I would encourage them to take a lot of classes as well so that they learn how to implement pieces of that when they're social dancing. It's not just about keeping the timing and following the lead, but it's about their unique
Mhm.
expression too.
Okay. And actually make sure this maybe give me a hint or a tip for a follow something I'm sorry for a lead maybe something you've experienced that you wish you could change.
From a follower perspective,
Exactly, yes ma'am.
um, leads need to keep their timing.
It's always
The
important.
most annoying thing is when, they're trying to do something fancy, but then when she's keeping the timing, they come in on the wrong beat. So
Okay.
what you're doing, leads, keep your timing in the music. And if
It's
you
Ah,
always
lose
important.
it, then maybe just do the upper body for a moment, look at her feet, and jump in. So she
yeah.
doesn't have to adapt you.
Okay, sure enough.
So,
I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, let me ask you, Adrian. Yeah, kind of very similar questions, but maybe start out. What are some hints or tips that can maybe help improve a lead to become a better dancer, a better leader?
um, flexibility. I think just making sure that you're constantly paying attention to your partner. And casino dance, in a sense, is like a dance that you where you dance a lot of times in close position, and even a lot of times when you're open position, you end up in this particular presso turns. So watch your elbows, watch, make sure that when you are when you are leading the particular person, that you're not yanking their arm in any
Of
kind of
course.
way, or you know what I mean. So as a push and pull, I think it's great if you're so it's almost like you also have to test out the person, your follower, and adapt to what she's
Of
basically
course.
do. So, if you dancing with a person who cannot do pretzel turns yet, there's no reason why. There's plenty of
Exactly.
dance moves. You can take her into rombo and close position and paso de son for the whole song, into saloneos, into many different things without having to feel like you have to break her arm because she doesn't know what you're trying to do.
Right, right, right.
Do that. And I've been guilty of that years ago, where I just dance with everybody and started to do all kinds of turns. So I think that's extremely important. So basically, be very mindful of what your partner is able to do,
Yeah.
and if that person, let's say, has very tight arms and cannot, maybe you shouldn't do a lot of this, or you shouldn't do different things. I mean, it's 20,000 other things. Now,
Yeah.
so just be mindful of
Yeah.
you're leading particular people. Now, of course, if you meet the perfect lead, the perfect follow that it has, I would say, spaghetti arms and is able to do all these fancy turns with you, great. Enjoy the time, keep the timing of the song and the music.
That might be most important. Yeah.
But yeah, have a great time.
Yeah.
And I think also is we're responsible a lot of times for the timing in the music, as Amanda's mentioning. It's extremely important to learn the a tiempo, the contratiempo, and the reasons why, where the clave is, where it's not. You know what I mean? And the beginning of the song, where does the chorus start, where do you finish, where does the singer actually start singing, and so on. Those things are details that really develop. I remember Amanda dancing with this particular group. We're in Santiago, Cuba, and at this time, we went to Casa de la Trova in Santiago, Cuba, and we were there watching was it Septeto Santiago? I think it was Septeto Santiaguero. And at that moment in time, there was the Ministry of Culture of Havana came to visit, and they had sort of the room reserved for them. We were able to get in later on afterwards. But after dance with Amanda, there was a particular I guess one of the ministers of culture in Cuba who danced with Amanda, and after the dance, he said, "It's amazing how this particular Cubans, maybe he was born in the 60s and 70s, are able to dance casino and know exactly the particular time when to go from the first part of the song when you're in close position all the way to when the chorus starts and you can start playing with your arms all the way to the ending to finish in close on different positions." And it was almost like you know you can probably do a a scientific project, and just about every Cuban born in that generation of casino dancers could do particular that because they're
Mm,
conscious of the music and how they
right.
from the beginning to end. And that was amazing. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think that's probably a big thing. Maybe a hit or a tip that I've noticed. The music dictates everything. Correct.
hmm
Yeah.
yep.
So I think that's always something to always keep in mind.
hmm
And so I'm curious. Adrian. Is there from a leader's perspective, is there anything that you a tip that you would get to follows?
Uh, your arms. Relax your arms.
Okay.
The more you relax your arms, and it's an art. You have to learn how to isolate the particular part of your body from your arms to be able to. And in casino dance, it's extremely important to have softer arms. That way, guys can actually do their certain things. And footwork wise, travel forward. For casino, it's important to travel forwards and in arcs. If you travel back, the back step a lot of times what ends up happening is kind of janks you from your position a lot of
Mm,
times. It can be done. There's different times that you can dance with somebody with back step, but you can tell. But if you're trying to dance casino in a linear style, and you are dancing a circular in this particular circular way, is really really hard. So sometimes notice that, and so I try to always, even when I'm dancing, I try to encourage the follows to sort of travel forward at times and to be able to follow that space. Because sometimes when you go back, that might jank my arm and might jank your arm,
okay. Yeah.
and create an injury too at the same.
Yeah. Definitely.
Travel forward and being cognizant of your partner. And I think probably the most important thing, always letting your lead know where you are and how you are, because what happens is sometimes is this is the part of gender stuff within the dance. It's like, well, as the guy, I can do whatever I want. Actually not. Actually,
Right.
the job is to be able to be in whatever chemistry and whatever way you can actually support her through the dance. If she's not having a good dance, it's not going to be a good dance.
Exactly, of course.
Period. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that goes yeah both ways. If either person not having a good time, it's not gonna be a good dance. So yeah, I definitely understand that.
exactly.
I'm curious. I don't know the name. What is the name of the person who calls out the moves? Is there a title for that person?
They call it
Cantante.
el cantante.
Cantante, la cantante. I'm very curious. One, how do you dance as well as call out moves? I'm very curious to know how you do that. And two, are there any tips or hints, to help a future cantante?
I think it just takes practice. When we're
Mm,
teaching the newer dancers in DC Casineros how to call, we try to get them to call it on the count five,
okay.
4 or 5. So if you have that number in your head, it might help to, but also practicing by yourself
Hmm.
Oh,
helpful. We
Yeah.
encourage our dancers to dance alone and just walk out the moves, practice the moves with the
Hmm.
music in the
Right.
background. You can, and I've heard a lot of Cubans say when they were growing up and they were in boarding schools in the 70s, they would practice on poles and they would dance casino with poles, and that was
mm,
how they taught themselves and how they
Hmm.
practiced
okay.
in the schools.
Hmm.
I had a when I said I take it back in college. My teacher actually had me dance with a T-shirt. I don't know if it helped or not, but that's something he made me dance with. Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
And and so, well, I'm curious. Are you all able to do DC casinos full time, or do you have jobs outside of this?
We have jobs outside of it.
Okay, okay, sure
Very
enough.
easy. We have jobs, huge
Yeah.
time.
I'm
Hmm.
a
Okay,
mental health therapist,
okay,
so I do that in dance movement therapy
Hmm.
in
okay,
a addiction treatment center.
okay, sure enough.
Yeah.
So I am advanced behavior analyst therapist, advanced behavior therapist, which is basically I work with children with autism around and basically work with them with different interventions and therapies to help them, be be fully themselves within.
Okay, I understand.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so and I do 20,000 other things on the side too as well.
Okay, sure enough.
For example, I'm running a soccer camp at a local high school too.
All right, that's awesome, man.
And so in the afternoons, I do a lot of the work,
Okay,
a lot of the ABA therapist work.
okay. I'm curious to know. I guess for both of you all, how would you define success for DC Casineros, or is it already successful for you? Or, how would you define success for it though?
Interesting.
Well, I think, Amanda said it. I think that we have done so much within the history, I mean, with the last 15, 14 years. And I think one of the biggest points that we had in our history is being able to bring the Rueda stars all the way to Washington D.C. Nobody had done it before. It was the first time that that ever happened, which is basically a Cuban popular dance, social and Cuban popular dance company, the best in Cuba.
Oh
Two
wow,
2 hour theater, perform with them on stage.
is
That
it is it is there
ticket,
video of that?
yeah, we have, yeah,
Okay, it's on YouTube.
we have it. Yeah.
Okay, so I
Some of it,
definitely
but not.
on your website maybe
Hmm?
on your website then maybe.
No, that particular
I
presentation
think
didn't
we
get.
just have a private copy. We
Hmm.
haven't published.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I mean, you should
that
definitely put that
was,
out there. People would love to see that. But okay,
but we do have other performances.
okay,
So that was huge. I mean, for us, I think that really raised the level of dance company, but also for ourselves, I think the connection between Santiago, Cuba, and Washington D.C. got so stronger, and we end up going to Cuba to perform with them at their particular theater too in Santiago, Cuba as well. And I think since then we just kind of been, um, you know, we've been performing at different venues, different events. We perform at the Kennedy Center a couple
hey,
times. That actually is online, and you can see that performance. And the last show that we put together, actually, the performance at the Kennedy Center, we actually did in conjunction with the Cuban community. So we
Yeah.
basically recruited members, our friends from the Cuban community, to perform with us and to be part of our performance. And then also, uh, we did a show memorizing the life, celebrating the life of Juan Formella and Los Bamban. So we did a lot of research um, through music, through the history, and we did a video production plus dance production with about 12, 13 different choreographies, and that probably has been our most major work by ourselves. This is not even with the Rueda Stars, because in years before we would perform at the theater, it was DC Casineros with some Cuban artists.
Mm.
But this time we kind of did it all ourselves. And sure, we still had some feature artists like Jonathan Berg, one of our he original from Boston, who just moved to DC, and choreography sort of for some of our teachers, but still was a major production that we did basically um, 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 ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of the work of research, a lot of the work of putting it together. So that's been sort of huge for us in a lot of ways. And
And I think another piece is just being a dance company that's recognized by
Yeah.
big institutions like the
Mhm.
Kennedy Center. We were invited to dance in their Artes de Cuba 2-week festival last year.
Mhm.
They said that we broke the records. More people arrived at this free outdoor stage than any other show in
Yeah,
That's
history.
awesome. Okay.
that's amazing. Yeah.
We're also recognized by the Cuban embassy to perform at a lot of the events within the embassies.
That's
So
Mhm.
awesome.
I think, for me, the success of the company is bringing casino dance into the public eye.
Mm.
And really, I mean, DC audiences really understand now and they attend our events. They want to learn how to dance it, they appreciate it.
Mhm.
So I think that's
Mm.
our socials. We get usually over 100 people coming.
That's awesome.
I think that's a big sign of
That
Right.
success.
it is.
And people have it different now. They understand what casino is and Cuban dance is versus what salsa is, for
Yeah.
example, and they can make the difference and say, "Oh, okay, this is what this is." I mean,
Right.
our city has become a lot more knowledgeable and
Mm.
critical thinking minded in that particular.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, DC is a dancing city though. I used to live in Richmond, like I said, and I used to travel to DC to dance. So yeah, DC is a very cool city. It's a very cool city.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I guess just really one last question, real quick. And I guess maybe just to help out some of the dancers, could you both give me one tip that could make anyone a better dancer immediately?
Listen to the music in your free time. Listen to the music when you're cooking, when you're in the car. Listen as much as you can. If you're learning casino, listen to Los Bamban, Manolito y su Trabuco, all of the popular Cuban timba music.
Eh,
Mhm.
eh, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would agree with that. I think the music will inspire you. I think if you are able to pick up, I think that's what happened to me in a lot of ways. I was listening to what we call salsa and to different groups from Colombia, from Puerto Rico, from the United States, and so on. The moment I discovered Los Bamban, I was like, okay, I love this. Then this is fine. Marc Anthony's okay. Love it. You know, even DLG is great. You know what I mean? 90s and early 2000s. When I discovered Los Bambam, and Manolito Sutrabuco, and then La Banda, I'm not going back.
Okay, so enough.
I was like, all right, this is it. I'm sold. Like the level of musicianship, the amazing. And then I discovered more, some music in the way it was played, Panchito Pancho Amat. And I mean, wow, there's there's a level, and then there's another level.
Sure enough.
So yeah, Irakere. I mean, wow, like yeah, there's so much amount. So once you discover the music, as you're saying, I think that will inspire you to really learn the dance and to practice and to build that part. But you got to be excited about the music.
Yeah, of course,
Which
of
will
course,
do.
yeah,
It's contagious.
yeah. I would say as a student, it makes it so much, I guess, easier to enjoy a dance when you enjoy the music until want to learn it. So I definitely understand that. Yeah, yeah. I guess at this point, I really want to thank you both, so much for taking time out to talk to me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, of course.
Taylor.
I, I'm curious, I guess, you know, please tell me what are some of your upcoming events? What do you have going on in your life?
I mean, we have a bunch of different stuff coming up. I think we're gonna be at the Bachata Congress doing a Cuban day of activities. There's a couple bands that are coming into town. We're probably gonna be involved with this. I cannot mention many details yet because we're
Okay.
not. But you probably will see us either performing or supporting those events with those bands from Cuba. And there's gonna be let me see. We're gonna probably be in Arena Stage on the 24th of August performing as
Okay.
well. Uh,
Okay.
DC and then Adams Morgan Festival, which is a festival that we used to do for many years. We're coming back there and actually do it again. And I think there's gonna be more stuff going on. I think the group will travel at some point again outside the country to perform and to teach and so on. We have some travel soon coming up soon. Again, I don't want to share too many details because that's
Sure enough.
coming, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah. Sure enough. And I guess last one. How can people get in contact with you? How can they reach out to you?
They can email us at dccasineros at
mhm,
gmail.com. They can go to our website, dccasineros.org. We also have a contact us page there.
mhm,
Definitely check out the website. And we also have a
mhm,
lot of videos on YouTube of our weekly classes,
mhm.
our
Yeah,
performances. So just Google,
yeah,
Yeah.
search for DC
yeah.
Casineros.
Sure
And
enough.
go to our videos, and as we were talking about, go to our videos on YouTube. A lot of our classes. We post a lot of our video classes there, but at the same time, a lot of our performances. You can go back all the way through the history of the group, so you can see also our progression. Um, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the way to 2019 and 2019.
Sure enough. Sure enough. Yeah. Yeah. See, like I said, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No doubt. No doubt. See ya. Please
And,
enjoy the rest of your days. All right.
and I just sent you the video of Amanda's first performance in Cuba,
Okay.
Havana.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. I
Excellent.
appreciate that.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, so, no doubt. See, like I said, thank you so much, and please just enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
You
All right.
too.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. No doubt. Take
Sure.
it easy.
Bye.
Hey
That's all it is.
everyone. If you made it this far to all to the end of the video, I want to thank you so much. Um, my overall goal with making these interviews and these episodes is to give a voice to dancers. To give them a platform to speak their story. So, if this is of value to anyone, then that means the world to me. My overall goal is to give value to the dance community. So, if you find no value in this, then I urge you to please let me know where I can improve on. Um, I I truly want to, just uh, give value and content to the dance community. So please let me know how I can improve, where I'm messing up, because to be 100% honest with you, I'm learning along the way as I do this. I truly am. So to be able to interact with the dance community, it means the world to me because it gives me feedback and it lets me know what I'm doing right, where I can improve upon. What I'm doing wrong, which I feel like might maybe more important. So please, if you all could comment and just let me know what you think, it means the world to me because that feedback just helps me improve. So um, please comment as well. Please like and subscribe. That means a lot as well. But I want to say thank you so much for just watching this because it means the world to me. I want to take you on this journey with Two Left Feet podcast. I'm very excited for it. So once again, thank you so much.